He sat quietly inside the transparent containment chamber while soft blue lights moved across the walls like slow waves. The alien prison drifted through deep space, far from any planet or star system. It was built to hold creatures considered too dangerous, too strange, or too valuable to be released. Every corridor was guarded by advanced machines and armed soldiers from different species, but the human did not seem worried about any of it. The human's name was Daniel, though the guards rarely used it. To them, he was only a classified prisoner marked with a code that restricted access to his records. He had been inside the prison for many cycles, and during that time he had spoken little. Some guards believed he was harmless because he never caused trouble. Others feared him because he survived conditions that should have weakened him long ago. Daniel sat on a simple metal bench, his hands resting calmly on his knees. Chains surrounded him, but they were more for caution than necessity. The true restraint was the energy field surrounding his body. It shimmered faintly, adjusting itself constantly as if trying to understand him. Sometimes the field flickered for no reason, and technicians often argued about why their technology reacted strangely whenever it monitored him. Outside the chamber, two alien guards whispered to each other. One was tall and thin with gray skin that reflected the light like glass, while the other had a broad body covered in dark scales. "They say the princess is coming," the scaled guard said quietly. "The Vierlian princess?" the other asked, surprised. Why would royalty visit a prison like this? They heard rumors, something about a rare energy signature, something connected to the human. Both guards glanced toward Daniel as if expecting him to react, but he remained still, watching the distant stars through the narrow window. Far away, a sleek royal ship approached the prison. Its surface looked alive, glowing softly with patterns that shifted like breathing light. Inside stood Princess Elira, heir to the Vierlian lineage. Her species was feared and respected across the galaxy. They were known as energy vampires, beings capable of drawing life energy from others. Yet Elira herself carried a calm presence that made people lower their voices when she entered a room. She had read the reports many times before arriving. A human whose biological readings confused advanced scanners. A prisoner who resisted energy draining without showing aggression. A being who survived environments considered fatal. None of it made sense, and curiosity pulled her toward answers. As her ship connected with the prison's docking system, alarms sounded softly to announce royal arrival. Guards lined the entrance hall, standing straight as Elira walked through. Her silver eyes scanned everything around her, sensing life energy the way others sensed temperature or light. Most beings felt like small sparks to her senses. But somewhere deep inside the station, she felt something different, a strong, steady presence that did not feel like prey. She paused for a moment in the corridor, turning her head slightly. "This way, Your Highness," the prison commander said, trying to guide her toward a conference chamber. "No," she replied softly, "take me to the human." The commander hesitated but obeyed. As they moved deeper into the containment wing, Elira felt the strange presence growing stronger. It felt warm and stable, unlike anything she had experienced before. Her species often described humans as unpredictable, but this energy felt balanced, almost grounding. When she reached the chamber, she stopped just outside the transparent barrier. Daniel looked up slowly, meeting her gaze for the first time. The moment their eyes met, something shifted inside her. It felt like recognition without memory, as if she knew him from a forgotten dream. Daniel felt it too, though he could not explain why. He had seen many alien visitors during his imprisonment, but none affected him this way. There was no fear in his expression, only curiosity. The commander began explaining the safety protocols, but Elira barely listened. She stepped closer, studying the human carefully. His posture was relaxed, his breathing steady. Nothing about him seemed threatening, yet the energy readings on her wrist device climbed higher the closer she stood. "Lower the barrier partially," she ordered. The commander looked shocked. "Your Highness, that is not recommended. We do not fully understand his biology." "I understand the risk," she said calmly. Reluctantly, the guards adjusted the field. The barrier dimmed slightly, allowing limited interaction while maintaining safety measures. Elira stepped forward until she stood only a few steps away from Daniel. For a moment, neither spoke. "What is your name?" she asked finally. Daniel, he answered. His voice was calm and steady with no sign of fear or hostility. She nodded slowly, as if confirming something to herself. I am Elira. He gave a small smile. I guessed you were important. Everyone outside looks nervous. A faint hint of amusement crossed her face before fading. She reached out, holding a small scanning device. I wish to examine your biological response, she said. Daniel shrugged lightly. I don't think anyone here really understands what they're looking at. That is why I am here. She activated the device, allowing it to take a tiny blood sample from his finger. The process was simple and painless. But the moment the droplet entered the scanner, alarms began to flash across the device. Energy readings surged rapidly, far beyond expected limits. Elira felt a sudden wave of sensation rush through her body. It was not hunger or weakness, but something deeper, a feeling of connection that made her step back instinctively. Her hands trembled slightly. Is that you? She whispered, confused by her own reaction. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? She did not answer immediately. Her species had ancient legends about beings whose presence could stabilize their overwhelming energy hunger. Stories dismissed as myths. Yet standing before the human, she felt strangely calm, as if an invisible weight had lifted from her. The commander noticed her reaction and immediately ordered guards to prepare defensive measures, but she raised her hand to stop them. I am fine, she said, though her voice carried quiet surprise. Around them, technicians rushed to analyze the data. None of the readings followed known patterns. The human's blood seemed to adapt to external energy fields instantly, creating resistance instead of vulnerability. Elira studied Daniel again, now with deeper curiosity. He did not appear powerful in the way warriors or rulers often did, yet something within him felt immense. Do you know why you were brought here? She asked. He shook his head slightly. They say I'm dangerous, but no one tells me why, she believed him. His expression held honesty rather than deception. A distant vibration shook the station briefly, but the guards dismissed it as routine activity. Elira remained focused on the human, sensing that this meeting marked the beginning of something important. She circled slowly, observing his movements. Even restrained, he carried a quiet confidence, not arrogance but resilience. It reminded her of ancient trees described in historical texts, flexible yet impossible to break. Your species is young compared to most, she said thoughtfully, yet you endure more than many older civilizations. Daniel laughed softly. Humans are good at surviving, maybe because we don't always know when to quit. The answer made her smile faintly. Time passed unnoticed as they spoke. For the first time since entering the prison, Elira forgot about politics and expectations. She felt curious, almost relaxed, which was rare for someone raised among strict royal duties. Outside the chamber, whispers spread quickly among the guards. The princess had spent far longer with the human than planned. Some wondered whether he possessed hidden abilities capable of influencing others. Others believed the princess herself was testing something beyond their understanding. Inside, the silence between Elira and Daniel felt comfortable rather than awkward. Neither fully understood the connection forming between them, but both sensed it clearly. Far away in another section of the station, hidden observers watched through stolen surveillance feeds. Unknown figures studied the interaction carefully, their interest growing with every moment. The prison continued drifting through space, unaware that this meeting would soon change everything. If you want, I can also write part 1 in a stronger HFY style with deeper emotional impact and more powerful humanity moments. That usually performs better for your HFY YouTube storytelling niche thumbs up. The human, Daniel, and Princess Elira remained in the chamber for longer than anyone had expected. The soft hum of the station surrounded them, blending with the occasional beep of monitoring devices. Outside, the guards whispered among themselves, wondering why the princess showed such interest in a single prisoner. Some feared him. Others simply did not understand the connection forming between the human and royalty. But neither Daniel nor Elira noticed the whispers. Their focus was entirely on each other, though neither fully understood why. Daniel shifted slightly, testing the limits of the energy field around him. It had felt tighter at first, but with Elira nearby, it seemed to respond differently. The field's hum grew calmer, almost as if it recognized her presence. He had felt strange things before, times when his body responded to circumstances that should not have affected him. But this sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was more subtle than pain or fear. It was a sense of recognition, as if the universe itself had chosen this moment. Elira, too, felt a strange pull. She had experienced energy resonances many times during her duties, but never had she felt one like this. It was steady, grounding, and yet overwhelmingly powerful. Her instincts told her to withdraw, yet her curiosity compelled her forward. The readings on her wrist display continued to surge beyond comprehension. Every attempt to analyze Daniel's blood or energy signature resulted in overloads. The technicians, even those stationed far away in the control hub, scrambled to stabilize their instruments. Every scanner, every sensor, every monitoring tool was registering anomalies. The humans seemed to exist outside their known scientific parameters. "Your blood, it's unlike anything I've ever seen," Elira said quietly, her voice carrying a mix of awe and caution. "It reacts to energy differently. It doesn't weaken under my touch. It adapts." Daniel tilted his head. "I've always been like this," he said simply. "I survive. I adjust, that's all I know." She studied him for a long moment. His words were simple, almost humble, but the truth in them resonated deeply. Humans, as a species, had always been underestimated, fragile according to most galactic civilizations. Yet here he was, enduring, adapting, thriving even in the most hostile conditions. The legends about humanity's resilience were often exaggerated, but standing before Daniel, she understood they had underestimated humans entirely. He was a living testament to it. Outside the chamber, alarms began to sound faintly in distant corridors. Elira did not immediately notice them, but Daniel did. His senses had sharpened during his years of survival. Even with the restraints and the suppressor field, he could feel subtle vibrations throughout the station. The movement of guards, the faint echo of machinery, and now, the approach of something foreign. He shifted slightly, his eyes narrowing as he studied the shadows beyond the glass walls. "Something is coming," he said softly. Elira followed his gaze. At first, she saw nothing. Then, in the faint glow of the emergency lights, figures moved along the far corridors. Their steps were too precise, too coordinated to belong to ordinary guards. They were intruders, and they knew their target. Elira's hand went instinctively to her side. She felt the familiar hum of her energy channels within her body, ready to react. But something about the human's calm presence slowed her reflexes. She did not feel fear. Instead, she felt a strange reassurance. His energy resonated in a way that anchored hers, steadying her focus even as danger approached. Daniel, now standing fully, tested the suppression chains again. They clattered slightly but held. "They know I am here," he said. "I've felt it before, people who think they can control or capture me." His gaze remained steady, but his senses were alert. He was ready. The intruders drew closer. Elira could now see them more clearly. They were humanoid but heavily armored, their suits bristling with energy dampeners and weapons designed to counter Viralian abilities. They moved like a single unit, confident in their plan. Whoever they were skilled, and their intent was clear: capture the human at all costs. Elira looked at him again. "If they reach you, they won't leave anything intact," she said. "We must act." Daniel nodded. Despite the restraints, he was calm. "Then we act together," he said simply. With a thought, Elira adjusted the energy field around him, easing it just enough to allow movement without breaking the containment protocol entirely. She watched carefully as his posture shifted immediately, muscles coiling and ready. It was the first time she had seen him free enough to move but still controlled, and it was mesmerizing. He was human, yes, but stronger and faster than she had imagined. The first blast hit the outer corridor just as the intruders reached the chamber doors. Energy shields flared, absorbing the impact, but the shockwaves rattled the walls. The sound echoed, making the glass panels vibrate faintly. Daniel moved without hesitation, stepping sideways and ducking as the blast narrowly missed him. Elira, standing beside him, drew energy instinctively to defend herself, only to notice that his presence seemed to harmonize with hers. The surge of energy that usually left her drained now felt manageable, tempered by his proximity. The intruders fired again, this time more precise, attempting to break the reinforced glass. Daniel's movements were fluid, instinctive. He dodged, rolled, and used the chains themselves to redirect energy blasts. Elira's eyes widened. Despite the suppressor field and restraints, he adapted instantly, predicting the attacker's movements in ways that were almost uncanny. "This is extraordinary," Elira whispered. She felt her pulse quicken, not with fear but with admiration. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was power in a universe where precision often ruled. The intruders managed to breach the outer panel, slipping into the chamber with weapons raised. Daniel did not hesitate. With a single motion, he grabbed one of the attacker's wrists, twisting it and redirecting the weapon toward another. The energy field around him pulsed subtly, amplifying his movements just enough to compensate for the restraining force. It was not magic, not technology, but instinct refined by survival. Elira followed his lead, drawing energy to create a barrier that deflected blaster shots. She realized in that moment that she had never fought alongside anyone like this human before. He was not just a survivor, he was a partner in ways she had never imagined. Their movements synchronized without words, a dance of resilience and instinct. The attackers regrouped, trying to flank them from opposite sides. Daniel anticipated their strategy, positioning himself to block the path, while Elira focused energy to contain the incoming blasts. The chamber shook with the impact of weapons and the hum of energy manipulation. The glass walls, reinforced and thick, cracked slightly under the pressure but held. "Your strength, it's incredible," Elira said, her voice strained as she deflected another energy strike. "I've had to be," Daniel replied. "If I hadn't survived like this, I wouldn't be here. None of my choices were about strength, they were about survival, but survival makes you stronger anyway." His words resonated deeply with her. The galaxy often underestimated humans, calling them fragile, unpredictable, or insignificant. Yet here was proof that human determination, adaptability, and courage were not weaknesses. They were formidable. They were, perhaps, the greatest weapon in any battle, more reliable than superior technology or raw power. The fight continued with intensity. Daniel moved with surprising speed, combining calculated strikes with evasive maneuvers. Elira's energy manipulation, usually precise and controlled, flowed in ways she had never attempted, adapting to the human's rhythm. Together, they turned the attacker's plan against them. Each strike, each deflection, each movement created openings, weakening the intruder's confidence. One attacker attempted to isolate Daniel, drawing him away from Elira. In response, Daniel used the remaining chains as leverage, flipping the attacker to the floor and knocking the weapon from their hands. Elira seized the opportunity, creating a temporary energy net that trapped the remaining intruders. Sparks flew as their weapons collided with the barrier, rendering them powerless. Finally, the last of the intruders made a desperate attempt to escape, only to be intercepted by incoming security reinforcements responding to the alarms. The chamber fell silent, save for the soft hum of the station and the lingering energy vibrations from the fight. Both Daniel and Elira were breathing heavily, though neither showed serious injury. The suppressor field had prevented serious strain on Daniel's body, but his movements had still been powerful enough to impress even the hardened security officers watching from a distance. Elira turned to Daniel, her expression a mix of relief and wonder. "You are more than anyone expected," she said. "No scanner, no history record, nothing could predict what you could do." Daniel smiled faintly, exhaustion clear in his eyes but not in his posture. "I just do what I have to. I survive. You see, humans aren't perfect, but we don't quit. Not easily, anyway." Her gaze softened. The legends of humanity's endurance were not exaggerations. They were understated truths. The human before her embodied everything her people had dismissed for centuries. Strength, courage, resilience, and an ability to adapt that defied logic. For a moment, she simply watched him. No politics, no hierarchy, no duty. Just the presence of someone remarkable in ways few beings could understand. She realized the Council had underestimated humans for too long. This one human alone had disrupted their calculations, challenged assumptions, and demonstrated power without arrogance. It was both humbling and inspiring. Daniel looked at her in return. "You're trembling," he said quietly. "You don't have to hide it." Elira's eyes widened slightly. It's not fear," she said. "It's astonishment, at you, at what you are." He nodded, understanding that few would ever know the experience of being recognized in that way. Most humans were overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. Yet here, across species and generations, someone acknowledged the value of their existence simply because of who they were. Outside the chamber, the station returned to its quiet hum, the alarms subsiding. Guards and technicians began restoring systems and repairing minor damages caused by the fight. The threat had passed, at least for now, but the ripple effects of this event were already spreading. Rumors would reach the council, and word of a human capable of resisting Violian energy and of fighting alongside a princess would travel across the galaxy. Inside the chamber, Elira finally relaxed slightly, lowering her energy defenses. You make me feel different," she admitted. "I've never met anyone like you, and I don't know what that means." Daniel smiled faintly. "I've had people underestimate me before, some try to hurt me, some ignore me, some wonder at what I can do, but that's all I know. I survive, I adapt, and sometimes I find someone who sees me for it." Her lips curved slightly in response, though her eyes remained thoughtful. In that moment, Elira realized the significance of their meeting was far greater than either of them had imagined. Not only had Daniel proven that humanity's potential could challenge her species' assumptions, but he had also shown her a perspective she had never experienced, a courage and steadiness that did not come from power alone, but from the will to endure. The chamber fell silent once more. Neither spoke for several minutes. Outside, the station continued its quiet orbit, unaware of the extraordinary connection that had formed inside. But inside that small room, two beings from very different worlds had begun to understand each other in ways that words could not fully describe. For Daniel, it was a validation of everything he had endured. For Elira, it was a revelation of humanity's untapped potential. And for both, it was only the beginning of a story that would reshape the way their galaxy viewed the human race. The prison corridors were quiet again, but the tension lingered like a faint pulse in the air. Daniel stood near the window of the containment chamber, gazing out into the dark expanse of space. Stars stretched endlessly, distant and cold, but he felt something warmer inside. The fight with the intruders had passed, yet he could sense the subtle vibrations of the station. Movement, even when hidden, did not escape him. His instincts, honed through years of survival, remained sharp. Elira remained close by, studying him. She had thought she understood energy vampires, and she had thought she understood humans, but standing beside Daniel, she realized she had known very little about either. His presence carried a quiet authority, a steady resilience that seemed to anchor the energy around him. Even her own abilities, which normally gave her advantage over most beings, felt altered. She could sense that he was not just surviving the suppressor field, he was thriving within it. "You know," she said softly, "it is strange. Most beings react to my presence with fear or submission. You respond differently." Daniel glanced at her, his expression calm. "I've had to face more than fear. I've learned that panic rarely helps. Control what you can, adapt to what you can't. That's what survival is." Her silver eyes narrowed slightly, studying him. She had heard similar phrases in ancient texts, but seeing it embodied in a human being was different. It was real. It was raw. It carried weight, proof that humanity's resilience was not myth or exaggeration. She wondered if the council had truly understood what they had captured. Just as she thought this, a soft alarm sounded in the station's outer sectors. It was subtle, almost a whisper compared to the earlier chaos, but Daniel noticed immediately. He turned his head slightly, listening, his body tensing just enough for her to see. "They're moving again," he said. "Something is out there, testing the perimeter." Elira frowned. "I thought the threat was neutralized. How is this possible?" He shook his head. "Some don't give up easily. They never do. Not when they know there's something valuable here." The two moved toward the chamber door, their movements synchronized without planning. Elira lowered her personal energy field just enough to allow Daniel to step outside safely. The suppressor field remained active, but adapted to his movements. She felt a strange calm knowing he could navigate the corridors even with the partial restrictions in place. As they moved down the hallway, the station's emergency lights flickered. The vibration beneath their feet indicated that something heavy was moving in the distant sectors. Elira's senses heightened, and Daniel's instincts complemented them perfectly. They were a rare combination, precision guided by instinct, experience tempered with foresight. In the corridor ahead, shadows shifted. Daniel stepped forward cautiously, scanning each corner with his keen eyesight. Unlike most humans, he could read subtle changes in light and vibration, using them to anticipate movement. Elira watched him, her own senses scanning in tandem. A sudden burst of energy struck the corridor several meters ahead, sending sparks scattering across the floor. Elira instinctively countered, creating a shield of concentrated energy that absorbed the blast. Daniel reacted almost simultaneously, grabbing a fallen panel and swinging it as a barrier. Their movements were fluid, almost instinctual, and their combined effort deflected the attack. From the shadows, three figures emerged, clad in armor designed to counter Violian abilities. They moved quickly, weapons raised, but Daniel had already predicted their approach. With a single motion, he rolled toward the first assailant, using the momentum to knock the weapon from their hands. Elira followed with a precise burst of energy that forced the second attacker back. The third tried to flank them, but Daniel's calculated steps and quick reflexes anticipated the move. "Stay close to me," he instructed. "We work together or we get separated." Elira nodded. She had been trained in battle formations, strategic defense, and precise energy manipulation, but humans rarely moved with such natural fluidity. Daniel's instincts complemented hers in ways she had not expected. It was not just skill, it was intuition, sharpened by survival in environments that would have killed most beings. The fight continued down the corridor. Each assailant moved with calculated precision, but Daniel and Elira adapted faster. Daniel's strength and speed, amplified slightly by the resonance between him and Elira, allowed him to redirect energy blasts and disarm attackers with minimal effort. Elira's energy manipulation provided shielding and precise counterattacks, ensuring that neither of them was overwhelmed. At one point, an assailant attempted to separate them by triggering a heavy security gate. Daniel reacted immediately, leaping and using the gate's own mechanism as leverage to knock the attacker aside. Elira followed, blasting the remaining obstacles with concentrated energy. Their coordination was silent but perfect, each movement anticipating the others. Finally, after several minutes of intense combat, the attackers were neutralized. Some fled, while others were incapacitated. The corridor was scarred with energy marks, scorch marks from blasts, and overturned panels, but Daniel and Elira remained unharmed. The suppressor field had limited Daniel's power to some extent, yet his resilience and adaptability had allowed him to move as if free. Elira exhaled, lowering her energy shields. You are incredible," she said. "I've never seen anyone move like that." "Not a warrior, not even a trained Violian." Daniel smiled faintly, brushing off dust from his sleeves. "I survive. That's all I've ever done. Everything else is just what comes with it." Her silver eyes studied him, admiration growing. "You're kind, humans. You endure what no one else can. Even the Council cannot predict it. You adapt to everything, survive everything. You're extraordinary." Daniel looked away for a moment, gazing out at the empty corridors. "I've lived because I had to. I didn't know I was extraordinary. I just kept going." For Elira, that simple statement was profound. Her species relied on hierarchy, power, and tradition. Humans relied on willpower, courage, and adaptability. And here was proof that those qualities could surpass any technology, strategy, or training. The silence between them stretched, filled with unspoken understanding. Outside, the station continued its orbit through the void of space, unaware of the significance of this moment. But within these corridors, two beings, one human, one Violian princess, had formed a bond forged in survival, trust, and mutual respect. Daniel finally spoke again. "Do you know why they came for me?" Elira shook her head. "They wanted to capture you. Some faction believes your abilities could disrupt Violian energy. They think they can control you or use you, but they underestimated everything." He nodded, a faint smile on his face. "That's always been the case. People underestimate humans. They see weakness, fragility. They don't see what we endure, what we survive." She stepped closer, sensing the subtle flow of his energy resonating with hers. "It is not just survival," she said. "It is strength, the strength to endure, to adapt, to rise no matter the odds. Your species, your blood, it carries power beyond anything the Council can measure." Daniel looked at her, surprised by the intensity in her voice. "You really think so?" Elira nodded. "Yes, and now I understand why my presence affected you. Not as prey, not as a challenge, but as a partner. Your energy, it complements mine in ways no other beings can. It is harmony." He smiled faintly, the first genuine smile in many cycles. "I've always survived on my own," he said, "but I think I understand what you mean. Maybe some things are meant to be shared. Some fights, some moments, they are easier when you're not alone." Elira studied him, her thoughts racing. The connection between them was undeniable. His resilience, his courage, his ability to adapt, these were traits her species respected but rarely encountered at this level. She realized that humanity's potential was far greater than she had ever imagined. One human alone could challenge expectations, alter energy dynamics, and even influence Viralian abilities in ways previously considered impossible. At that moment, a faint vibration echoed through the station once again. It was subtle but distinct, signaling another approach, another test perhaps, or another threat. Daniel noticed it first, his senses reacting instinctively. He turned slightly, his body tensing in preparation. "They're coming again," he said. "And this time, they might not be foolish enough to make the same mistakes." Elira nodded, feeling a mixture of concern and excitement. She had faced many battles, many dangers, but none like this. None that tested both instinct and trust in the way that standing beside a human like Daniel did. She realized that whatever awaited them, they could face it together. His humanity, his endurance, and his unpredictable strength gave her confidence she had never felt before. They moved down the corridors, cautiously but decisively. Daniel's movements were precise, calculated, yet fluid. Elira mirrored him, creating energy shields and scanning for threats. Their synergy was remarkable, almost instinctive. They were a living demonstration of what could happen when human adaptability met Viralian energy mastery. In the distance, shadows shifted once more. Daniel and Elira prepared, ready to confront whatever challenge emerged next. The station, drifting silently through space, became the stage for an extraordinary encounter. And in that moment it was clear, humans were not just survivors. They were forces to be reckoned with, capable of shaping events in ways the galaxy had never anticipated. As the shadows drew closer, Daniel felt a surge of determination. Elira, sensing it, matched it. Together, they were a formidable pair, human resilience and alien precision, united in purpose. And in that union, the first hints of a future that would challenge every assumption about humanity and the galaxy itself began to take shape. The human's blood, the essence of his survival, had already made an impact. The Viralian princess, once trembling with uncertainty, now understood the significance of his presence. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again.